now is the time that we've all been waiting for. I get to introduce Miss Claire Daugherty. Claire and her husband Levi have traveled all over the world, traveled many places, and they've gained insight and wisdom. And she also is very generous with sharing that with people. She is a near-death experiencer. She also relates well to the angelic realm, and she really likes to help others explore how to mobilize that in their own lives. As a medium, she has gifted us every year, and sometimes more, with prophecy readings that she gets channeled to her, and she's actually going to share that with us today, so I look very forward to hearing that. And thank you, and let's give a warm welcome to Claire Daugherty.
Good morning, everyone. I decided today that I will share the prophecy that was given to me for 2025. And I just want to share some of the conversation we were having with Bill on the way here. As was mentioned in my bio, Levi and I have traveled all over the world, but we weren't on Viking cruises or traveling the way most people think of international travel. Sometimes it was on the chicken bus in Haiti, where you have, if you want a seat to yourself, 2 seats seat 3 people. And the bus doesn't leave until there are 15 people in the 12-passenger van. So I asked my host, please buy 3 tickets so that we can actually have a seat. And before we had reached our destination, we had 2 children that had been passed back to us. I asked for the baby. Well, I asked for a little boy that I was afraid was unconscious because the bus was so hot and he was on the floor. And the mother passed me the baby because we had an open window. And so there were 3 of us in 3 seats, and they ended up having 5 of us in 3 seats. Some of our adventures have been really out of the box. I think most of you know that Levi and I have been students or disciples of Reverend Moon for over half a century, and he really taught us to think outside the box. He was constantly telling us, I need 700 women to go to North Korea. And this is not a joke, I'm serious. And volunteers stepped forward, and we didn't know any of the details. We just figured, well, he had a real connection. And as those of you who have studied the channelings of Paul Solomon, you know that sometimes heaven gives you some preposterous directions. But if you know that your leader is hooked up, tuned in, you listen very carefully. And so I ended up going to North Korea with 700 women. We just went to it's just past the DMZ. They had a little touristy area. They figured, wow, people will pay a lot of hard currency to come climb this sacred mountain. It's in Korean tradition, a bear and a tiger mated, and a character called Tangun was born, and he's the father of the Korean people. And every Korean's desire, just like Muslims wish to go to Mecca at least once in their life, every Korean, north or south, wants to climb the Diamond Mountain. So they opened it up to tourists. It's closed now, but for a brief period, Japanese, South Korean, and some hardy souls like me were going there. Our son, when he was in 2nd grade, he had never been to school. I homeschooled my children, but our youngest son went to 2nd grade in a traditional public school, and they were studying about camels. Desert habitats, and they were talking about camels, and he said, I rode a camel in the snow. And the teacher said, no, dear, there are no camels in the snow. And he said, but I was on one. There was snow everywhere. We went to the Great Wall of China, and, for whatever few bucks, you could climb on the camel and get your picture taken. And it was, full of snow. And the teacher didn't know that. I said, just take the picture. Another time he said, I was in a little boat, a little motorboat in a river full of crocodiles and piranhas, and the motor died, and I was really scared. And she thought, why, this kid has a wild imagination. I said, actually, it's a true story. Reverend Moon asked us to go to an experimental farm to take our families there in the remote area of Brazil. And there were tours that you went on, and we were in a caravan of little boats, and ours didn't make it. And I don't speak Portuguese, but I do speak Spanish, and I could understand the guide was not alarmed. He said, oh, don't worry, they'll come and tow us in. And within 15 minutes, they came to tow us in. But you could see the crocodiles sliding off the bank, and they told us, keep your hands in the boat. There are piranhas in the water here. So he got a piranha to bring home. You know, it was, I don't know, with plastic. It was a real piranha, and it was preserved, and our dog ate it. I mean, the stories of our life are so preposterous. You know, the dog thought it was fish jerky. I don't know, maybe it wasn't plastic. Maybe it was something the dog thought tasted good. So he was pretty upset with the dog for eating his piranha, because the only proof he had. But we've had more adventures than that. The last one, we went to Haiti on a service trip. Some friends invited us, and I said, you know, we're flying out of the Dominican Republic. We got to the DR, and then we went overland to Haiti. I said, let's do a little beach vacation. Well, we are very low-budget travelers, so I went on Booking.com, and I found a place for $20 a night. I said, don't expect much. There's probably going to be a room in someone's attic. Well, actually, it was quite nice. It was a simple room. The shower was cold water, but in that heat, it was refreshing. No air conditioning. You just opened all the windows. Had an outdoor kitchen. You know, you wouldn't want to cook indoors in that heat. Had a lovely pool surrounded by all these tropical flowers. I mean, it was just intoxicating. And the lawn service was a white horse named Whiskey. And she would just turn Whiskey loose on the lawns, and he'd just eat all the grass, and she just kept moving him around. She had one property on either side of the road. So for $20 a night, we had quite an adventure. So we have been all over the world, but not the way many of you would envision it. You know, on riding camels at the Great Wall and $20 rooms in the DR and breaking down in the middle of it's like Indiana Jones, a river full of crocodiles and piranhas. But that taught me to not have concepts. You know, that when we have an intention and we have a belief that this is something that needs to be done, then we mobilize the spirit world, because nobody ever really brought about significant change or advancement without being able to think outside the box. You think of the biggest innovations that have happened, it's because somebody could imagine unimaginable possibilities. Someone could visualize something that could be done even though it never had been done. And I've lived many of those experiences because my teacher had that kind of mindset, you know, that things need to be done to create peace on earth. And I'm so excited that the Family Festival is about peace this year. Peace is something that we desperately need, and it's not going to happen if we keep doing the same thing over and over. I think it was Einstein said insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. We need to do things differently. We need to do new things. We need to do things that have never been done before. And it's my firm belief that one of those things is to go beyond our neighborhoods, our families, our churches, our clubs, whatever the normal boundaries of our everyday life. If we all stretch, then we'll meet other people. Maybe they speak a different language, maybe they look different from us, maybe they eat different foods, but we'll discover that we all have the same yearning in our hearts. We all want a peaceful world where our children and our grandchildren can live in harmony and can thrive and can live in peace. So let's really stretch. I'm going to share with you today what was given to me. And Karen asked me, is this a channeled message? And I had to think about it for a minute, and I said, yes, it is, because when I get these New Year's messages, I go into a time of seclusion and prayer, and I just wait until I'm told, okay, I write them. It's like I get a dictation. And this year, I had to really sweat it. I went the day before, and I didn't get anything. I was told, go home and dream. And I had to be back. I was back at the church at 7:30 in the morning for an event. I think we started at noon. And people were coming in the door, and I was still writing. So it's something that is given. It's not something that I can do on my own. And every now and then I'll get a little reminder like that. I was doing a reading for a lady. She called. We had an appointment. And I couldn't get a connection. Do you remember the old days of dial-up internet? Yeah. And sometimes you want to go online, and you weren't getting there. It was like there was no connection. And I just had to tell her, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I don't do it. It's done through me. And if they don't show up, well, nothing's going to happen. Let me share briefly with you. I timed this because I know I only have 30 minutes. What's my time now? Okay. All right, this is verbatim I'm going to share with you. Let me see if I should share the intro. No, we're just going to go right into the message. Welcome, brothers and sisters. We're gathered today to express our common desire to build a peaceful, ideal world, a world where the divinity of every human life is recognized by all, a world where our Mother Earth is treated with love and respect. That's the third blessing. Take dominion over all creation. A world where all share in the abundance of resources, but most importantly, all receive infinite love from our divine source through each other. This is how we experience God's love, is through each other. We're all God's ambassadors. A world where our uniqueness is celebrated and honored. A world ruled by love, compassion, justice, and mutual respect. As Jacob said to Esau, his brother, who sought to kill him to settle a score, in Genesis 33:10, if I have found favor in your sight, then accept this gift. Jacob was giving Esau everything he had, his flocks, his herds, his family. Accept this gift from my hand, for to see your face is like seeing the face of God, now that you have received me favorably. As people on the path of the Spirit, we are aware of the divine nature of every human being. Namaste means the divinity in me greets the divinity in you. All the great teachers gave common lessons. The language and culture they worked in might vary. The essence of their message was universal. As people striving every day to live a life in the Holy Spirit, that divine essence, we are called to reach beyond our countries, cultures, languages, and religious denominations. We are called to build that peaceful, ideal world in ourselves, our families, and our communities. Let's join hands and do exactly that in 2025. Unless we have peace within, that's where it has to start. Peace begins with me. Each one of us has to start with that internal peace, spread it to our families, our communities, and then it just moves out. It can't be legislated from outside. It has to be something that is flowing from each and every one of us and from our common associations. Jesus said in John 14:2, my Father's house has many rooms. John 14:11, believe me when I say that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. or at least believe on the evidence of the works themselves. So each one of us is God's representative to the world. Some people are still asleep and they don't know that, but if you're aware of that, you're a walking advertisement for peace. All right, here's the prophecy for 2025. 2025 will be a year of tumultuous change. Many hidden facts will come to light. Many will be shocked and fearful when they discover these lies, cover-ups, and diversions. Fear not. This exposure is a necessary first step. When structures that have been hiding the doers of darkness collapse, there will be a time of chaos. Those who have maintained control will see they are losing it and become desperate. But once the cleansing flood begins to flow through, there is no turning back. Many of these exposures will begin in the United States, then spread around the world as the system for maintaining power cracks and crumbles. People will be filled with anxiety as they discover that what they trusted and followed without question is a hodgepodge of lies, half-truths, and manipulations. The time is ripe, for spiritual leaders to step forth and offer a different paradigm, one centered on love rather than one centered on control and taking advantage of others. More feminine styles of leadership will emerge. It will fill a vacuum, a void where people don't know where to turn. People will yearn to feel safe again. Many will have a spiritual awakening, realizing that without deep roots of holy principles, nothing can long stand. New models of cooperation will emerge. Self-sufficient models, not dependent on government, which will no longer be trusted. They will emerge. A friend of ours was in the flooding in North Carolina, and she had very moving stories to tell us of how neighbors just got together and helped each other. Whoever had electricity let everybody charge their cell phone. People just shared whatever they had, and everyone was taken care of. And FEMA was nowhere to be found. But neighbors took care of neighbors, and they made it. There will be economic consequences of the collapse of the old system. New local models of self-sufficiency will arise, at first because of the breakdowns, but many people will realize how much more is available to them outside the mainstream. Much of this more will be emotional, spiritual, and mental well-being. The importance of community will be recognized. Many intentional communities will emerge. I just want to take a moment to emphasize the importance of having a spiritual community. Please bring guests. Invite people to come here, because many people don't have a fellowship. They don't have this support system. And there are many empty chairs in here. There's plenty of room for new people. So reach out and invite a friend and a neighbor and let them decide if they want to come. Don't have concepts. Oh, he would never like this. Oh, she would poo-poo it. You don't know. Maybe they would have last year, but maybe they're really hungry for that connection. And that's what religious groups, churches offer. We offer fellowship and connection, and that is a really fundamental human need. And many people, it's not being met for many people. And as I spoke last year, many of the traditional churches are falling apart and closing their doors because they're not meeting people's spiritual needs. Many will experience contact with other dimensional life forms. Many of these non-three-dimensional life forms are not only benevolent, they are far more highly advanced than present-day humans. They will guide and assist those who have advanced to a spiritual level that allows them to communicate effectively. These are beings of love and light who come in a spirit of loving service to assist us as we transition to higher frequencies. Much like a midwife encourages and guides a mother giving birth, we will do the hard labor, but will know we are guided and protected. Many of these light beings have been spoken of in the Abrahamic faith as angels. Our understanding of them will evolve from concepts of mythology to active partnerships. There will be many technological advances that will demonstrate undeniably the active work of these interdimensional beings in supporting and protecting human advancement. Research will continue in the human electrical field. I think everybody in here is familiar with the concept that we have an aura, but that's not understood in hard science right now. Kirlian photography has existed for decades, and the aura actually can be photographed. And sensitives can see it, and if they're artistic, can paint it. But there's much more, and science is going to start being able to prove that. Research will continue in the human electrical field, and the relationship between what is now considered physical matter and spiritual energy will be clarified. The realization that life is all one continuum will begin to be realized. The world, here's an example that was given to me to show we think of the physical world and the spiritual world as two different things. On the earth, we have the world on land and the undersea world. It's all part of Earth. But different rules of science apply. Gravity underwater is perceived differently. There's still gravity in the ocean, it's just because of the presence of water, it's not the same as being on land. Land creatures breathe oxygen directly through the air. Sea creatures extract oxygen from water, but all are part of the natural world on planet Earth. So we don't think of, the land and the sea as two different realities. They're just part of one whole. So what was shown to me is that the spirit world and the physical world, they're part of one continuum. They're just different rules apply, just like in the water, in the air. The communion of what is now considered physical matter and spirit matter will be better understood. The frequencies in between will begin to be understood. While beings of light will be assisting in our birth to the next highest dimension, lower entities will also be desperately trying to hold on to the power they have had over mankind. Ignorance-based fear will abound. Clashes and wars will continue. Fear is not only futile, it really drags you down into a very low energy. And fear is always based in ignorance, of not knowing, not having the information. And I promise you, we have, as Roosevelt said, nothing to fear but fear itself. People of the light will awaken to their innate power that until now has been only vaguely recognized. Many will experience miracles that in fact are just awakening to applying spiritual truths that until now have been taught by all spiritual masters, but very partially understood. When a teacher comes, usually their revelation is very elevated, but most of us are not on that level, so we understand it on our level, but we have to grow to grasp it more fully. Those who are ready to ascend will actively seek community and cooperation beyond their traditional identities of religion, teachers, language. The internet will speed this process, and the legacy media will rapidly lose credibility as it becomes increasingly exposed as a tool for the old order power who has maintained control until now. This was very clear, that our media is giving us their viewpoint. we're not necessarily getting the pure facts. We're getting a very slanted and edited and flavored version. And it's designed to make us move in a certain direction. But the internet is wide open, at least for now. They might try to censor that more and more. Like in China, the internet is heavily, heavily censored because it's recognized how dangerous it is if people can communicate freely with the rest of the world. One of the crazy places I went about 26 years ago was Cuba. And people were not allowed to have internet in their homes. They could only, you had it in your workplace if you needed it, but of course they could censor and control and monitor every site you visited. Okay, so the legacy media we're going to see really how they've been used by the shadow government. As spiritually minded people awaken to their innate power, they will work collectively to create these miracles. The power of group prayer, collective meditation, and shared focused intention will astound those willing to go beyond their comfort zones to work in collectives. There's a wonderful book I recommend called The Power of Eight. And it was an experiment that was done, I think it was UCLA, when people shared an intention and gathered, through the internet, all over the world, at the same moment, to hold this intention. The things that happened were absolutely incredible. You've probably heard of the experiment that was done many years ago with, I think it was transcendental meditation, if I'm correct, in Washington, D.C. And they were able to reduce the crime rate very dramatically in a period of a month through a group meditating with this intention. So people are going to realize, Jesus has said, where two or three are gathered, I'm in the midst. So find a prayer partner. Get together with a friend or two, or 20 or 30, and decide your common intentions and pray. Prayer and meditation, I always say, are like a pair of shoes. You really need both. Prayer is putting that intention out, alerting the spirit world what you need, what you're asking to happen, and what you're willing to make happen. And then meditation is listening for the answer. Conversation, a real conversation has to be two ways. So we have the power to manifest through our intentions. And when we gather together with other people who have a shared intention, it's incredibly powerful. As was shared last year, mainstream medicine will begin to experiment little by little with new information being revealed about the invisible energies around the human body. It was called the electrical field earlier. Many of these new treatment modalities will be available soon, although not yet endorsed by hard science. As only a mother can give birth, the unleashing of the divine feminine energies in all fields will help to rapidly usher in the new consciousness. As it is resisted, anyone who's ever had a baby knows this, labor is prolonged. As it is embraced, new birth can be achieved sooner. Let us go forward eagerly to this new golden age. It is the era of the heavenly Mother God. We will live by the law of love, compassion, forgiveness, and as brothers and sisters. I invite all present today in this room, physically or at a distance, to join in the dance. Sing loudly that you all may hear and dance with us joyfully. God bless you all in 2025. Let's bring heaven on earth. That's what Jesus said 2,000 years ago. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. He's still waiting. That's our job. Let's do it. Thank you.